Okay, welcome everyone. Today is actually, I don't know, July 8th, 2020, and this is the Cluster API office hours. Cluster API is a sub-project of SIG Cluster Lifecycle. Please adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. Use the raise hand feature on Zoom if you'd like to speak, and be kind to each other. If you're attending, please add your name to the agenda. In order to get edit access, you need to join the SIG Cluster Lifecycle mailing group. The instructions are at the top of this document. Okay, so we'll get started. So first stop is welcome and introductions. So if you're new to this meeting or to this group and you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about why you're here, now is a great time to do that. So I'll go ahead and mute, and feel free to unmute and speak up if you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'll say a quick hello, as I've not joined this meeting before. I'm James Munnelly. Some of you may know me from Cert Manager and a few other meetings. I'm just dropping in to chat about Cert Monitoring API. Hello.
Awesome. Hi, James. Welcome.
I'll jump in there as well. I'm Chris Hine. I work at Apple. I'm kind of sitting in on this just to feel out what's going on and see if there's anything that we can help with or potentially look into leveraging.
Great, welcome. Anyone else? Okay, so we'll move on to PSAs. Nader, you want to take the first one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so me and Cecile are finalizing slides for KubeCon this week. If there are things you've been working on, either in Cluster API or infrastructure provider, and you want to highlight that at the virtual KubeCon, which is on August 20th, I believe, might be August 19th, then contact us in the Kubernetes Slack, I suppose. I'll drop my email in as well, there as well, if you want to reach out that way.
Yep, let us know. Vince? RC release, exciting.
Yeah, so we're almost getting there. So yeah, like yesterday we cut RC 0, and thank you for to the Azure folks for quickly testing this out. I think Nader and UCCO like put a PR up and like tested the end-to-end, which seems like they have been successful, which is great to hear. There's a lot in this release, so feel free to take a look at the roadmap, but this is a rough list of like high-level features that we added in, and yeah, community and the team like did a great work in this release. The release notes will actually be compiled at release time. I'm hoping to do an RC1 tomorrow, which will add support for cluster cuddle move for cluster resource set. And then the actual release, like maybe either like Friday or probably early next week, though, like so that we don't rush it and we can test it a little more. So that's exciting, and congrats everyone for this huge milestone. And then like after this, like we'll probably start talking about Alpha 4 in the next few meetings. Any questions on that?
I don't see any hand raised, so I'm gonna assume that's a no. That's awesome. Great, so moving on, I don't see any demos or POCs signed up for today. So we'll jump to general questions. And by the way, if you're new-ish, this general question section is great if you have questions throughout the meeting. So feel free to add them even after we pass this section. I'll make sure to check back in at the end. So we have one from Warren about the node draining timeout. Do you want to talk a bit about that, Warren?
Yeah, so I have a, there was a issue about adding a node draining timeout to the machine controller, I believe. And if you want to open that up, Basically, I kind of did some diving in, and I found out that we have the machine controller by default. When it drains the nodes, its sort of default way of doing things is by evicting the nodes and then waiting for them to be deleted. However, I noticed that amongst the many timeouts that are there, namely timeout, global timeout, and there's one called skip, wait for delete, yada yada yada. What I notice is that in the paths for eviction, we essentially, after evicting, we wait for the pods to be deleted essentially forever. But if the delete pods, so if we disable eviction, I mean, just go down the path of deleting the pods, we essentially wait for 20 seconds for the pods to be deleted. And my question was like, where did this 20 seconds come from? And is there a reason for this difference in behavior? I just wanted to kind of get more context on this area of the controller. Thanks.
Anyone have any comments on that? I see Jason had a guess in the comments.
Another thing I wanted to bring up was if there are any sort of tests specific for this draining logic, if you could point me to them. I kind of did a quick check and I didn't really run into any. So if you'll know if there are any tests around testing these things, that might also kind of be useful in understanding the behavior. Again, I just want to understand this because if I want to make changes, I don't want to screw everyone over with some weird timeout.
Yep. Jason?
Yeah, so I think So I think the biggest challenge we'll have here is if we're recommending that users that are running critical workloads use PDBs to ensure that those workloads are running as intended, we need to make sure that we're honoring, those PDBs as part of eviction and even including that in our kind of like scaling workflows and all of that stuff. So I think it's good probably not to wait, until maxent, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we give kind of reasonable time for those workloads to evict prior to moving on. Otherwise, we could be disrupting workloads that shouldn't be disrupted. And it may be that we need to do something similar to the autoscaler at some point where we actually introspect some of that information, but right now we're just kind of blind right now. And I think the draining process is the only interaction point we have right now that would have any chance of interacting with the PDBs.
Yeah. Michael?
Yeah, as of today, you could build some kind of external controller if you want it, and apply the skip node draining annotation after some timeout that you've determined.
Does that help, Warren?
Yeah, I think the origin of this issue was like to make these timeouts during the draining configurable so that they could adhere to the PDBs that have been configured as well. I guess I can reach out to Michael later, but regarding the separate controller to annotate the pods, I was hoping to not build a whole separate controller. Sorry.
You annotate the machine.
Sorry, yeah. Okay.
Andy?
I think having the ability to have an external controller with the annotation as an escape hatch is useful, but I also think that it would be nice to not require that if you did want to just say, okay, I've been waiting 10 minutes for the eviction to happen. It hasn't happened, so let me just force it through. and it would be configurable. Like it wouldn't be the default.
Yeah, I see a few hands raised. I'm sorry, I don't know your first name. D. Thorsten. Thorsten.
Oh, sorry, I guess I didn't have my name set in Zoom. I'll fix that. It's Dane. I think you just actually answered my question. It was just going to be that we have a use case for very long drain times. So as long as that's configurable to a very large number, we would be fine. But if the default changed, we just need to just keep track of when we're going to change that default so that we don't break things when we deploy it. Relatedly, I'm troubleshooting what appears to be a bug in the drain logic, and I'm not sure if it's in here or if it's somewhere else, but I think I'm getting closer to what's happening there. But it seems like our evictions they're not actually making it to even that 20-second timeout before our pods are going down.
Michael, do you still have your hand raised, or was that from before?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we can make it configurable as long as the default is wait forever.
Okay. Warren?
Yeah, just wanted to clarify. I wasn't intending to change the defaults. I just wanted to expose it and make it configurable, and that's what kind of led me down this path of which timeout to make it configurable, and that's what I noticed. The two different paths having different timeouts. I'm happy to leave it as maxint if that's what the community feels is best. My goal was just to make it configurable.
Sounds good. Yeah, it sounds like having a configurable and keeping the default is a reasonable change for now, and then we can have a more sane default later if we feel that the default doesn't make sense. I see some hands still raised. Are those still raised, or did you forget to lower your hands? Dane? Okay, good. All right, let's move on for now. But yeah, thanks for writing the notes, Nadir. Okay, so discussion topics. I actually had the first one. So I just wanted to ask about, I know there was some discussion about the Bootstrap reporting a while back. And basically the idea is that right now it's pretty difficult for the infrastructure providers to know, or for Cluster API to know what the status of bootstrapping is when we run, for example, Cloud Init on a machine. If Cloud Init fails due to like for example, if the VM size is too small and there are not enough CPUs, KubeADM will fail, and we won't get that reported back. And so that's not great from an observability perspective. So I was wondering what the status of this document was, or if anyone was driving this actively, and if we would consider putting that in V1 Alpha 4. Nadir?
Yeah, I paused on it for this, for V1 Alpha 3-ish, 037 in any case. I think got to the conclusion that it was going to be, it's quite difficult to do an infrastructure agnostic way of doing it. But definitely something to consider for V1 Alpha 4. So I'll probably be happy to start revisiting it pretty shortly, actually, if anyone's interested.
Sounds good. I'm very interested. Please let me know if you have more discussions. And if we think that infrastructure agnostic is going to be too difficult in the short term, I think that's okay too. And I was holding on doing anything infrastructure specific because I wanted to see if we came up with a solution in CAPI first. But it is quite a blocker right now, so I would like to proceed with an Azure specific solution if we're not going to get that done right away. Cool. Anyone else have any questions on this or comments? Okay. Upgrade Cert Manager, Vince.
Yeah, I just wanted to call out that, and also shout out to James for jumping on this. Like, we are using a very old version of Cert Manager, which is 0.11.0. And we have been talking for quite a while to upgrade the Cert Manager version. We've been stuck with this because, like, mostly like we inherited the dependency from KubeBuilder and controller tools. So we're trying to move away from 0.11 to one of the latest version. And yeah, if you're interested, like there has been a lot of discussion on 2240. Definitely jump in. Like I think we have been making some progress. So I'm not sure if we will be able to like do any upgrades in the Alpha 3 release, but we'll definitely prioritize this for Alpha 4.
And I guess just to add to that as well, I'm hoping, like I know one of the kind of blockers that you've had on upgrading is waiting for things to be ready. And so that's kind of something I want to address with some of this work, and just making sure that we're taking an approach to checking whether Cert Manager is ready that is kind of agnostic between versions, so that next time it comes to needing to upgrade, you should be able to just drop in the new manifest and run your tests again and make sure it's all good. Because we do put quite an onus on API stability, at least, and making sure that if you create a resource in V1 Alpha 2 once, it should work across all API versions, similar to Kubernetes. So hopefully that can improve things there.
Thanks. Do we have any questions for James or Vince about Cert Manager and upgrade? All right, well, yeah, thanks James for jumping in. Cool, so I had one more question actually. I was wondering if, I don't know if Sadaf is on the call or not, but if we could talk a bit more about cluster resource sets for everyone here, and because I know that's a big new thing from the new release, and specifically how infra providers should go about adopting it in terms of timeline. I know there are a few issues open right now in the queue. Are there any that are blocking? Should we be aware of any bugs, etc.? Can anyone speak to that?
Hi, yeah. So about the open issues, they are just enhancement. They are not blockers as of now. So cluster resource set was in the cut yesterday's alpha cut. It can be used. What are the other questions?
So is it ready to adopt right now for infrastructure providers?
Yes, it is ready to be used. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's what I wanted to know. And it's not in the tests yet for CAPI, but it is going to be, correct? It's not used by the end-to-end tests yet.
We have end-to-end tests for cluster resource set.
Okay, great. And yeah, as Vince pointed out in the chat, would you mind just giving a brief overview to everyone who's not familiar with what CRS is and what it does?
Sure. So cluster resource set would be useful to kickstart a cluster by adding initial add-ons such as CNI, CSI, and make it operational for example, installing add-on managers. So initially when a cluster comes up, it is not in operational state. Basically, we create cluster resource set, add a couple of resources, can be secrets or config maps. And by doing that, we can like install like plugins to the newly created clusters by matching their labels, basically.
Great. Is there documentation available for providers somewhere?
No, actually, yeah. I was planning to add it to the cluster API book, but I'm waiting to finish up the last bits in those open PRs before publishing anything.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. And one last question, are we planning on removing that CNI step from the quick start as soon as we're able to when providers adopt this and there's no more need to install the CNI manually?
We haven't discussed it, but it can be possible, I think.
So we might need to, I'm not sure because like it's an experiment and it's disabled by default. So you have to change the flag unless we default it to true, which given it is a first integration, we probably shouldn't. But I'll leave it to the group to decide. Like, I just wanted to point it out.
Got it. So it is an experimental feature right now. So it wouldn't really make sense to put it in the default templates that infra providers publish as part of their releases, since it needs additional steps to be used.
Yeah, like the only other thing that we could do is to default it to true so that you don't have to set and enable the experimental feature. But
okay.
Yeah.
Fabrizio?
I want only to give a clarification on the end-to-end question. What we have now is a specific end-to-end test that basically exercise the cluster resource set. I think that your question, Cecile, was about when, if we already are using the cluster resource set for spinning up all the other tests, quick start, self-hosting, and so on. This is not yet there, but we are planning. There is an issue to do this.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
So I'll put an issue.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I can't raise my hand. I can't. But
Go ahead.
I'll open an issue to see. So like, let's release 037 with clusters will set defaulting to false. And then as we evaluate it, then maybe 038 or 9 or like in another patch release, we can default it to true. And because like it doesn't impact that other controllers, which is nice. It's like kind of separate. So it can be done. And then, yeah, we can discuss on the issue.
Got it. Sounds good. Thanks. Any other questions or comments about this? Okay. All right. So I think that's the end of our discussion topics. But yeah, feel free to let me know if I missed anything. So I'm just going to move on to issue triage for now. Okay. So those are the issues that are without a milestone right now. And I'm sure there are many other new ones that Vince has already triaged or others have already triaged, but we'll look at those few for now. So I think this is actually the bug that Dane was referring to earlier. Dane, do you want to talk a bit about this? Or
certainly. I'm in the process of reproducing the issue, which I've done multiple times in a few different ways. The simplest way, most recently, was just to create a PDB for a small deployment of 3 pods and delete one of the pods. I made sure it had a initial delay of like 2 minutes to make sure that it had a good long while that we were at the point that it should have restricted, the PDB should have restricted further evictions. And then I deleted one of the other machines that housed one of the other pods, and it just drains really quickly. It takes about 20 to 60 seconds and it's gone. And then we end up with 2 unavailable pods. This originated from an actual outage where it impacted a stateful workload in one of our live environments. So the most recent thing I found was there was an event for the pod that shouldn't have been evicted from taint manager eviction. So I'm trying to figure out what would have triggered that. And there are a few other moving parts in our clusters and some other controllers, so I also need to rule out that it's not one of our other controllers that is doing this.
Thanks. So it sounds like you're still investigating. Do you think this is a regression from the current release, or is this potentially something that's always been there? And do you have any ideas around that?
I haven't looked at the history of the drain code path but I suspect it's been there for a while. I guess I'm not really sure. I only recently started working on this code base, so maybe someone with more history on the Drain code could speak to that.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, I've been working on this area extensively. So each machine is drained on a per machine basis. And the PDBs through the eviction API are quite atomic, so it's unlikely it's the eviction API. One possibility is if one of these kubelets went unreachable during this time period. So the first one was allowed to drain like normal, and then one of the other ones went unreachable for whatever reason. What will happen is the node lifecycle manager will taint the pods on the nodes, and the scheduler will mark those all as deleted. And the default options is drain ignores for the cluster API. The drain ignores pods with the deletion timestamp greater than 5 minutes when the kubelet's unreachable. So that's the only scenario that I can think we might have bumped into here. But I'm definitely interested. We posted on this if you find anything.
Yeah, that actually sounds.
Sorry, go ahead.
That sounds very likely. Looking at the event, the stopping container Nginx is coming from source component kubelet host and then the node's name. So that I think you're right on with that.
Okay, so for now, I've seen Michael on here. Sounds like you should follow up with him. And I think in terms of milestones, Vince, where are we? Because we're about to release 0.37. Do you want to start putting things in 0.38? Or I don't think this is necessarily a blocker for the release, but it should be addressed soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna do 0.3x because we don't have
okay.
the other milestone yet. I'm gonna put awaiting more evidence as well, just so that like we know that we're waiting for more info.
Okay, feature. Add support for multiple tilt providers in tiltprovider.json.
I took a look at this one and added a suggestion to see if maybe we can make this support two different modes of operation, one being the current singular provider and another one switching to an array, and have it be backwards and forwards compatible with both if Starlark lets us do that. I would say this is really kind of an anytime sort of thing. But I do know that there are folks who are working on trying to add additional providers to Kappa to support things like EKS. So from their perspective, I'd say it's probably important soon. In terms of milestones, we could do 0.3x if we wanted to.
Got it. Yeah, it sounds like that's the use case that it's being asked for. And should we mark this as help wanted, or do you think this is a good candidate? Yeah, okay. All right. Oh, so I guess this is one of the follow-up enhancements for cluster resource set. Better way of conveying errors. Sadaf, is this just 0.3x?
Yes, 0.3x, and this is an improvement, yeah.
Okay, thanks. And you're not working on this actively right now, correct?
Correct.
I put the wrong label, kind feature, oops. No, okay, sorry. Sure. Okay. And then I think yeah, this is the last one. Qvdm control plane resilience to machine disk space issues. Sounds interesting. Ben?
Yeah, so as part of, I've been working on the machine health check implementation for KCP, and just was like trying to see what would happen in the scenario, to see like if it, like if there's this whole thing in etcd of like disk space alarms that we could look at to see if it's under disk pressure. And what I saw was just like, I was just filling up the etcd with random keys, which is not a very realistic like scenario, but I think it seemed like that like etcd didn't raise any alarms for one. And other pods started failing, like the API server pod started failing. And yeah, it just got into a bad state. So it seems like something where we just probably have never investigated this failure mode before, but we should probably see what would happen and like try and make sure it happens in the way that we want it to. So it definitely is like a long-term feature.
Brian.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, I noticed KubeADM does not request any disk space for etcd, which probably makes this a tiny bit worse. And I have an issue file somewhere for that, which I'll post in the chat in a second.
Yeah, I think I came across that while I was Googling this stuff.
So it sounds like part of this is adding a test, right, to simulate this scenario, and then deciding what action we should take.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine there's like a category of tests that we don't have today, which are like kind of exercising failures, you know, kind of chaos testing or something. I was thinking would be a really interesting area to explore.
Yeah, definitely. And this, I have run into this before, the etcd disk space thing. So it's definitely important that we test it. Great. So Brian, if you want to paste the link to that other issue in KubeADM that you opened, that'd be great, so we can link them. And then I think we can leave this as milestone next for now, since this is more of a long-term thing. Any objections? Or any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay. Well, I still can't do milestones, so I'll let Vince do the writing for me. Okay. And then I think that's it. Are there any other recent issues that weren't discussed here that anyone would like to bring this group's attention to, or any milestone advancement propositions? No? All right. Yeah, Brian, can you please link the related issue in the other issues? That'd be great. Cool. Okay. I think that's it. Anything else anyone wanted to cover? All right. If not, I think that's it for today. Thanks everyone, and congrats on the new release. Really great work from a lot of people here. So super excited to see this coming along. Have a good end of your Wednesday. Bye.
Thanks, Cecile.